Oh no. All right. Hi. Welcome to my first video. So I am Dilly J. I've been dealing with a autoimmune disease called rheumatoid arthritis, other known as RA. We're going back to 2013, and I just had my daughter. After I had my daughter, the swelling never went down from having gestational diabetes, so it took me a moment to realize that this is abnormal. My knuckles were swollen. They were like purple, and my ankles were swollen. I could barely walk on my feet. When it came time, my wrists were very, very tender, and this was my first child, so I didn't know necessarily what to expect, but I didn't think it was this. I didn't know what was really going on. My husband was very concerned about my health. I couldn't literally pick her up, so I had to maneuver my infants. So it's like I had to use like my elbow and my what is this, the forearm? I had to use my forearm to kind of nuzzle underneath her to even be able to pick her up. So I was just in really bad shape at that time. And my husband started noticing that my fingers were swollen and the joints of my fingers were purple. And he felt like it was time for us to just go to the doctor and see what's going on. So we went to her, and she told me that I would need to go to a specialist. So the specialist for arthritis then referred me to, he said it wasn't arthritis. He said that it looked more severe than that. So he referred me to another specialist that deal with degenerative joint issues. So I went to another doctor who then ran some tests, and after the test came back, she called me back into the office and proceeded to tell me that I had RA, and at this time it was like over 78% of my body was rigged with RA, and that I needed to be aggressive. I needed to be aggressive with attacking this. We needed to act fast if we were going to get a handle on it. This is my first introduction to RA, and literally I had never truly been to the doctor outside of this time of having my daughter and when I was a kid for annual checkup. So my doctor history was very sparse. The doctor was there for if you were sick. So that's just how I viewed going to the doctor. I didn't have a rapport with doctors. I didn't know what questions to ask. I didn't know how to engage nor handle the situation that I was now thrust into. So she's over here telling me that we need to be aggressive, we need to act fast, we need to put me on some heavy medications to do this. She was naming, like she named one medication where it was almost like dialysis. Everything that she was presenting to me was experimental and expensive. I'm still stuck in the moment that I have RA and I don't know what this means, and she was just pretty much handling pamphlets to me and was trying to get me to commit to a treatment option, and I'm just sitting there stuck with what is RA? Like, what is rheumatoid arthritis? And so, like, that was the start of my journey with RA. And I'm told that it is hereditary, but as far as I know, my mom don't have it. My grandmother never had it. But in order to track if something is hereditary, your family would need to be going to the doctor, getting regular checkups, communicating the issues or the feelings that they have been experiencing. And if your family does not have that rapport or don't have that track record, how are you supposed to know that this is something that could potentially happen to you in the future, right? I was lost and I did not know what this meant, and now I have to do research on what does that mean for me. So I find out that RA, rheumatoid arthritis, I'm gonna call it RA because that's just what I call it, an autoimmune disease. Pretty much your body is seeing itself as a foreign object and is trying to get rid of it. So it is attacking itself. My analogy for RA is if my immune system was Hypno from Pokemon, and Hypno was to hypnotize a panda, which in this case would be my antibodies, and they were just to attack my joints just because they don't know any better. It probably looked a lot like something like this. There's no cure for it, and there are medications that help slow down the progression and even kind of stop the progression of RA. However, you will be forever living with this for the rest of your life. At the time I was 27. This was the biggest thing that I have encountered. So I called my husband and I told him that I have RA, that, and it's in over 78% of my body, and I did not even know how to handle the conversation with him. But he instantly just started Googling, and he was just like, pretty much just like, we will get through this. After discussing it and stuff, we have decided to go the best option. It wasn't one, I really wanted to take a pill. However, the doctor I was seeing at the time was like, you don't want to do pills. You want to be aggressive. That's not really going to be fast acting. You want to choose something that's faster acting and stuff. And I was just going like, well, I think I would feel comfortable with pills. I just really didn't want to do a shot. Honestly, before this moment, I never really took medication. This was a lot for me to process. But we went with, I think it was Humira is the name of it. And so I was doing a weekly shot, and I either had to do it in my thigh or I had to do it in like my abdomen area. I never, it never got easy for me to take that shot. So I had gotten back to some sense of normalcy. I was able to pick up my daughter. I was able to do everything that I was doing before. I was able to paint. I was able to be myself. And then there was a shift. And the medication that she put me on just wasn't really working anymore. And I went to her and I said, I'm starting to be in a lot more pain. Working with this particular doctor ended up being an issue because I would come in there and tell her where I was feeling pain, and I will be barely walking again, and she was just like, because like it, from when she gave me that medication to this point, years have kind of passed, and so I'm like, it's not really working for me anymore. And then her tone just kind of changed, and she was like, well, maybe you've been in pain for so long that you're making yourself feel pain that's not really there. So her language has started changing, and she started saying that I was making it up. At this point, the job I was working at had like really started. I was in a lot of pain, so I was like leaving a lot more. I'm on FMLA, and now it's just like I could feel that they are kind of looking at me. They're starting to like write me up more. I'm just like, okay, I kind of gotta get out of here. So it's like around this time I was like switching jobs. I'm like, I can't do this desk job anymore because sitting is so painful. I need to be able to kind of move around a little bit more. I was thinking that like that will kind of help me out. So I switched from a desk job to a cashiering job to just have a little bit more flexibility, a little bit more movement. And my doctor was still talking about how like I am just kind of making this all up. I switched jobs, and at first things were like it was helping a little bit, and all of a sudden like 2016 I started things started getting a lot worse. Like I was in pain before, but I could kind of tolerate the pain that I was going through. I was suffering in silence. It's like I looked fine. I looked like myself. But internally I was dying, and I literally felt like I was gonna die. Like if I kept up at this rate what I was doing, and I felt like I was killing myself. The reason why it just kind of like when I switched jobs to the cashiering job, I literally took the job when they were still in the process of getting the grocery store open. And when the grocery store opened, it really didn't do that well. So that made me have to cut back on hours. I was literally only getting 5 hours a week. And I was still coming in about 3 days a week. But I would only be doing bookkeeping and a little bit of cashiering. And then the store started getting customers, so I was able to get more hours. And in that span of going from not working very often to working a full shift, I was really able to feel how much pain and strain I was putting on my body. And the thing about RA is that it can be triggered, and you can have a flare up from overworking, not enough rest, not eating right, too much stress. There's like a number of things that can contribute to a flare up. At this time I had been feeling pain, but it was just like, oh, I need to take a break. And I would find ways to like keep it hush, and I would take care of myself silently. Nobody really knew that I had RA until I had to say something. And there would be times where I would go to work and there will be nobody in the bakery department. There's nobody in the deli department. Those two people have called out, and the head cashier has called out. So I'm doing my job. I'm doing the bakery department's job. I'm doing the deli department's job. I'm also trying to head cashier, and we're just completely shorthanded. You do that enough times, your body's gonna break, whether you have RA or not. I thought I was feeling better, and I had one brace on, and then I went to work the next day or a couple of days later, and I ended up having two braces on both of my knees, just so I could walk into the job and do my job. Then it got to the point where I had to grab a bar stool just so that I could do my job. I would have to sit to do the job because I just couldn't do it. Then it got to the point where I lost strength. Like, I completely lost my strength, and I could not pick up anything anymore. You can only handle so much. And with the weight and the stress of everything else that was going on, home and work, I literally woke up in the middle of the night and I was just screaming. I was in so much pain. I just was crying because I was in so much pain. I couldn't even sleep in the bed. It got to the point where I was sleeping in a recliner because I was in so much pain. And no matter what we did, it's just like we could not get rid of the pain. I tried ointments after ointments. I started taking off work more. It's just like I could not figure out how to. This was my first real experience with a flare-up. I had just been feeling pain consistently, and then it just like, it was in excruciating pain. My husband had to take me to the hospital. He had to help me go in there. They ended up giving me some morphine to help ease the pain. It felt like it took so long for that to kick in, and then I went home. I had completely lost my strength, and I needed a bagger. And the day was so bad, and it was so busy. I was trying my best to get through it, and then this customer like completely cussed me out, said, "What are you doing here? I don't even know why you're here. You're worthless." And I was just, it was such a bad day. I was about to cry because I was in so much pain, and then on top of this woman is like completely trashing me. And so I just looked over at my manager, which is also on a register, and I said, "Can I go home?" And he was like, "Yeah, you can go home." And I was like, "Thank you." And I called my husband because at this point I was in so much pain. I couldn't even drive myself to work anymore. When I look back on it, I'm like, stop going to work. But at that time, I felt like I had to. I felt like I needed to go to work. I felt like I had no other choice. And to anybody that's listening to this, just know that you always have a choice in everything that you do. Even when it feels like you don't have a choice, there's a choice, even in the non-choices, okay? But at that time, I felt like I didn't have a choice until all of my options were exhausted, and the only thing left to do was to go home. And I was in so much pain. And my husband's like, "You have to change doctors. Like, I don't know why you keep seeing her." At this point, I'm like, I have to change doctors. Like, the last time I went to her, she literally, I was like so frail, and I could barely move, and I was in so much pain. My husband, it's like, he had to start taking me. And she was just like, "You're making it up. It's just all in your head. You making yourself feel this way." And I'm like, I cried, and I told my husband, "Why would I make myself feel like this? Why would anybody wants to feel like this?" And then I found the doctor that I'm seeing now, and she had ran so many tests. And honestly, when she ran all these tests, there were tests that she was running that I was like, I never even had to run this test. Like, she was getting me like all kinds of vaccines and all, you need this, you need that, you need this, your immune system is compromised and all this stuff. We got to see what's going on. We're going to get you taken care of. And at this point, I was so low. I felt so low. Like, I was depressed. My self-worth was like gone, because unfortunately my self-worth was tied into all the things that I could do for others. I'm a huge people pleaser, and now that's gone. I had my own account, and that was gone. I'm a very independent person. I like being self-efficient, and that was gone. It was just like everything that I considered important that to make me had been stripped away from me. Point, I didn't even know who I was anymore. I was a mess. It's like I couldn't talk without crying. I was destroyed. I didn't know that RA could be this bad. And then after, I had been telling my previous doctor for the longest time that I'm in pain. I'm in pain. I'm in so much pain. And she was like, oh, no, you're not. You're making it up. You have been in pain for so long that you have convinced yourself that you're in pain. So this is just your mind making you think you're in pain because you don't know what it's like not to be in pain. So you are conjuring up a feeling that you no longer feel. And when I went to this new doctor, she looked me dead in my eyes and she said, I don't know how you're functioning. I don't know how you got here. When she was looking at my chart, she's like, it's just off the rails. Like, I don't see how you were functioning. It was the first moment where I didn't feel crazy, because it's like, unfortunately, because nobody knows what it's like to have RA unless you have RA. Even the people close to you don't necessarily know what it's like, and it's easy for them to forget because they don't see it. You know, it's like you cut your leg, you see it. You know, you lose an arm, you see it. You see that that's visually no longer there, but because there is something happening to your significant other and you cannot see that, you don't know how to process it. So my husband was treating me the same way, and I was trying to meet expectations of the person that I used to be that I no longer am. I was trying to fill shoes that no longer fit me, and I was angry because nobody around me could see it. I felt crazy because nobody else around me could see it, and they were still relying on me. But part of that was my fault because I was prideful. I didn't want to admit that I needed help. I felt embarrassed. Most of all, I felt embarrassed that I was now less of a person. You're not less of a person because you have an autoimmune disease. It does not make you less of who you are because you have an autoimmune disease. Honestly, it just adds to your character. It's just one of those things that you have, you will now have to try to overcome. You have to now reinvent the wheel. You have to reinvent yourself. You have to rediscover yourself and who you are, and what is now important to you may not be what was important to you before. Things change, and this is just the aspect of your life that is changing. I couldn't live as the person that I was before because she is long gone. I was mad. I was seriously angry that who I was up and left me without a goodbye. Like, who I was, I loved her. That was my girl. Like, I loved who I was. And I loved the energy that I had. And she left me. And that's literally how I felt. I felt angry. All I could think about was all the times that we shared together. I was angry that who I was gone. And I was left with this person, and RA came uninvitedly into my life and said, hey, I'm staying. I was mad. I was angry. I was angry that I was feeling things that nobody else could see. I was just infuriated. And I was hurt because I did not know how to be anymore. I did not know who I was anymore. If I'm not the person doing stuff for other people, if I'm not the person that's cooking all the time, if I'm not the person that's happy all the time, if I'm not the person that I was, then who am I? What use do I have in this life if I'm not who I was? And that was painful to try to figure out, because I didn't like who I was now, and I missed who I was, and I wanted her back so badly, but she was gone. So now I'm seeing this new doctor, and I thank her so much because she came along when I was broken. I was severely depressed. I was lost. I felt crazy. I felt insecure. Like everything that I wasn't before, I was now. And she would hug me. She would tell me things were going to be okay, that she would get me to a place where my levels were good, and that I wasn't in this amount of pain, that she would get me, we're going to get this under control, is what she said. We're going to get this under control, and first we're going to start by these particular medications, and these medications do this XYZ, and we're going to see how this works for you. And then at that point, my husband has like truly seen me at my worst, and has picked me up and has taken care of me and had made me feel better about myself when I felt my worst. And there was a point where I told him I can't do it anymore. I cannot go back to work. I can't even lift anything. And then it's like the doctor also found out I have bursitis in my shoulders. I also found out that I suffer from neuropathy. So I have like nerve damage. I'm learning a lot of things about myself. However, I'm in a better place, and I just kind of want you to know that like you're not alone if you're going through RA. If you had a crappy doctor, I'm sorry that was your experience. I wish it wasn't that way. But if you had a crappy doctor, I really hope that you found a new doctor, and even report that doctor, because like literally they're here to serve, and they're here to provide a service of wellness. And if they're not doing their job, then they don't need to be doing it. So anyway, that was my story time. It does get better. I don't know. I probably rambled. I don't know. But I'm speaking from the cuff because it is my personal story, and writing is difficult. And I just wanted to speak from the heart. I wanted to be genuine. It's going to be genuine anyway because of my story, but you get what I'm saying. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. Again, I'm Dilly J, and I guess I see you in the next video. Bye.